Welcome to High Stakes. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. On this show, I chat with authors about the moments in their stories that change everything, what's at stake, what it costs, and why we can't look away. From thrillers to romance to sci-fi and beyond. Let's get to it. Joining me today, debut author Meredith Lanzen, to talk about her sci-fi sports romance, Formula Zero. Welcome to the show, Meredith.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here. I have to admit that I didn't even know that sci-fi sports romance was a thing, but I couldn't be happier to have Formula Zero as my first entree into the subgenre. It was
Well,
great.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. It's a small sub genre. I don't see a whole lot of other people in this space, but I really enjoyed writing it, and I'm enjoying reading some of the others that I have found too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, congratulations. As I mentioned in the opening, it's your debut novel. I really loved watching Madeline and Julian's story unfold. But before we get into the book itself, I always like to have my guests talk a little bit about themselves and their writing journey, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been writing on and off my whole life. As a younger kid, I did what I think a lot of kids growing up in elementary school do, where in class you create a book, and those were my first stories where I'd go on adventures with Barney and see dinosaurs and dragons and all of that. And was a passionate reader really my whole life. I started doing more writing as a late teen and in college, and I got into fanfic. And then it was really during COVID that I started taking my original writing more seriously. It was my way to sort of stay sane during the initial lockdown.
Yeah.
I had lockdown and my first baby in like the a couple month
Oh,
period.
goodness.
And so being in the house and in that like the newborn trenches, I needed something that made me sort of feel like me and an outlet
Yeah.
that I could really sink myself into. And that was where writing came about for me. Formula Zero was the second book that I ever fully wrote, the first one that sold, and I am just thrilled beyond belief to be sharing it with everyone now.
Yeah, no, it was such an interesting I'm one of those individuals. I think I have watched every iteration of Star Trek that's out there. I love sci-fi. Aliens, the movie is like my favorite. I mean, that has monsters in it, but that's a little bit
Mm,
different. But it's like sci-fi. So I
hmm.
really love this genre, and I didn't really know too much about, I don't do sports, so that's just not my thing,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But I did watch recently the F1 movie with Brad Pitt
Mm,
in it. Did you see
yes,
that?
I
Yeah.
did. I did.
I liked it. I really
It was
enjoyed
great.
that. And
I'm
go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was skeptical because of Brad Pitt. I was skeptical, but it was really cool. And seeing the drivers, like the real life F1 drivers up there on screen too, was so neat. And it was
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really interesting, and I found myself I hope this doesn't sound weird. I'm a visual person, so I tried whenever I'm reading, I'll start seeing images of what's going on.
Mm,
And there were parts of whenever I was reading your work that I could actually kind of visualize what was going on because I'd seen that movie. You know what I mean? It kind of
yeah.
solidified things a little bit more in my mind.
Hmm.
You can still see it. I know that I could have still, I think it just clarified things for me a little bit more, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, my first hook into F1 was the Drive to Survive series on Netflix. That's what's really
Okay.
I joke that I was not supposed to write this book. I was supposed to be giving my agent something else entirely. But I took a break from what I was working on, and to turn my brain off, I started watching Drive to Survive, and the storytelling in that, which they over dramatize, of course, but really just
Yeah.
hooked me. And I went down this rabbit hole and gave my agent something else entirely. But it has led us to here, but it gets you, and the visuals
Yeah.
are stunning, and the history of these motorsports, which are things I really didn't know much about until a few years ago when I started going down this path, is really fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Well, we kind of talked around the book a little bit here, so why don't you kind of give us the summary of what the story is about, if you don't mind, real quick?
Absolutely. Formula Zero is Formula One if it was in outer space, and also they fall in love. So we follow our heroine, Madeline Clark, who is struggling through her second season as an elite racer in this like highest level, highest stakes intergalactic racing league that exists. And she is struggling with her team. She's not performing very well. Her dad is like a former star of the sport. They have a very estranged relationship. And then to make things worse, her childhood best friend, who she's recently fallen out of touch with, Julian, is on another team and having the best season and potentially on track to be the next champion of this league. And they get kind of thrown together through various circumstances, and we watch their relationship evolve, and we see Clark sort of um, take her own destiny into her hands and fight back against these powers that are trying to make her not be successful.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. Like I say, I was curious. You had mentioned that the Netflix series, I've already forgotten the
Hmm.
name of it, but that helped. That really kind of inspired you to
Yeah.
write this story. What what I guess inspired you to not just write an kind of like an F1 story, but to mix sci-fi and romance in there? That's a real genre blending, which is a big, really popular right now, and I love it too. What brought all of those elements together in your mind, do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird like Venn diagram, right? If we have like romance and sci-fi and sports, and I kind of jammed them all together. But the initial story in my head was just like the boy and the girl who were both racers in F1 and a romance between them. And in order for that to happen, I either had to write the first woman in F1, which was just not the story that I wanted to be writing. There's
Hmm.
there are other books about that, and those are great, and I love them, but that wasn't the story that I wanted to tell. Or I had to jump far enough into the future where female racers were commonplace in these types of elite racing. And once I started opening that door to maybe it could take place in the future, my innate love for all things sci-fi, like yourself, I was more of a like Star Wars, Battlestar
I
Galactica
like
girl
that
growing
too.
up, but I
Yep,
have
yep,
watched a lot of
that's
Star
lovely.
Treks ever
Yep.
since. It's like, what if I put it 800 years in the future and I get to pull in these sort of sci-fi elements. And then the romance between Clark and Julian was really organic as I was writing it, and we pumped it up even more during the editing process once we realized that that was something that could be a hook and sort of the heart of the story as well. Um, but I really like the balance between those three elements. It's important to me that there is equality between the romance, the plot, and like the on-page racing that kind of
Yeah.
grips you the way that Drive to Survive series does. And I think for folks like yourself who are maybe not in all three of those areas, if you're in one of them, it's like a little hook in, and maybe this is your first dip
Yeah.
into a sports romance or like a book that has a strong romance hook too, and you come along and explore and experience other books like this too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that that's wonderful. You made it accessible, and I was going to even mention too that I felt like you managed to take two, I'm going to call them technical areas of sci-fi and racing, because there is a lot of technical stuff to racing,
Absolutely.
oddly. But and you made it, I will use the term again, accessible to the average reader. So well
Mm.
done on that. Um, what kind of research did you do for this book? Because
Ooh.
I, wow, I mean, you really nailed it. It was like you felt like you were there, and some of the phrasing and the wording and just, I don't know, it was great. It was just really great.
Thanks. A lot of the research was just watching Drive to Survive. And then, I mean, that was my entree, but now I am deep into, I'm that person who's waking up at 4 in the morning to watch the races that are happening now in the live
Okay.
season overseas. And I've, been reading blogs and I'm on all these teams' websites. I did end up doing a lot of that, especially for the other support roles on a team where I'm like, who else is in the garage that's not just like the team
Mm.
principal and the racers and like the primary engineers on that day? And so I'm like deep into the like annals of Ferrari's website, finding out who is actually there. Well, who are the people on the pit wall? What does this button mean? What is this other thing? So I did a lot of just Googling of like racing terminology, made a good chunk of stuff up. made a good chunk of stuff up, especially for when the science part of it is concerned.
Yeah.
I personally, when I read, if I'm reading something that's like heavy sci-fi, like very science forward,
Yeah.
I tend to skim through those pieces as much.
Hmm.
So I didn't want there to be too much like science in people's
Yeah.
faces, because I don't like reading it and I didn't really want to write it. But some of that, and then something that I did end up having to do was I have a large map of the topography of Mars on my wall now. I finally had to give in and buy a poster because I was all deep into like NASA's backlogs too, like looking for these individual things. And the average reader doesn't care, if I'm making up a crater or if I get like the directionality wrong between these
Yeah.
landmarks on these planet. But I wanted it to have some grounding in reality that if you were looking at a map of Mars, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're talking about this race taking place here. So I do have that like right here on my wall now
Yeah.
for reference.
Well, the research that you did and making it up, your your imagination is wonderful in that area if that's the case because I was believing it all. So like and as we've already established, I Star Trek, Star Wars, all of those. I love all of those
Mm,
shows. So that's great. Well, on this show, we like to talk about the story stakes. I always joke,
sure.
love, death, the fate of the realm are all
Mm.
high stakes in a story. But what I'd like to hear is your thoughts on what's personally at stake for Madeline in this book.
Yeah, I think her sense of identity is really forefront for her. Because when we meet her at the start of the book, a lot of external expectations have been imposed on her to the point where she's struggling to see her own path forward. And like one of the other characters in the book asks her in a fairly early chapter, like, what do you want out of
Mm,
racing? Like just being here isn't really enough. Like what else do you want? Do you want to race forever? Do you want to stay on one team? Do you want to
mm,
like use this as a platform to speak about other things? And she doesn't have an answer at that point.
mm-hmm.
She's gotten so caught up in trying to manage her dad and her team principal and all of these other factors that who she is and what she wants has really taken the back seat. And the stakes of her um, rediscovering that and allowing herself to grow and become a like determining factor in her own destiny
Mm-hmm.
is really something we see her grapple with throughout the book. So that's her like internal struggle and her internal stakes. And then there's also like the championship and her, position in this team and in this league moving forward. But she has some internal and some external battles that she is certainly fighting.
Yeah, I like that that she's aware that she's a good pilot, right? So
Mm,
she knows that she's and she loves piloting these ships and things like that. But it was really, I think, cool and sweet that Julian helped her understand or see that she deserved more than what she was getting
mm,
from this principal, right?
hmm. Absolutely. Julian as Clark's kind of like hype man is not exactly the right word. But the two of them are very close to equal in terms of their
Yeah.
skills. And that's another thing that comes up in the book is like if they were in the same machinery, if they were on the same teams, which of them would win? We don't really know. That was important to me. And him still respecting her skill and helping her see her skill as independent
Yeah.
from, again, those external factors is one of the things that was always really clear in my head when it came to Julian. Like he was never going to be someone who was trying to talk down to her. He was never going to be someone who had to make her smaller to make himself feel
Hmm.
confident. And I love the way that that comes through.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely does. Well, we'll switch gears just a little bit and find out a little bit more about you as the
Oh,
author of
sure.
this book. As a debut novelist, I always love asking this particular question for any of the guests whose first book, we're talking about their first book. You're exposed to so many firsts, your first cover,
Mm,
your first editorial letter, your first book review, all these fun firsts. Some of them are fun, some of them are a little terrifying, let's be honest.
sure.
But I was very curious. What was your favorite first or the one that
Oh,
made you the most emotional?
oh gosh. My favorite first. the cover letter was, or the, not the cover letter, the cover art
Editorial.
was really
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Um, I I gave this like I have no graphic or visual artistic skill at all. So, but I had this image in my head and it came out in this terrible stick figure. Literally my 5-year-old daughter could do better in terms of getting things out of her head onto paper when we're talking about art. But I sent in this terrible stick figure, and my brilliant cover artist turned around something that like not only captured the heart of what I
Hmm.
wanted, but really like the story sort of
Yeah.
came to life. And now when I think of my characters, I think of them the way that my cover
That they're on
artist
here.
pictured them when they were kind of like fuzzy in my head before. So
Yeah.
that was really, really neat. And the other one might honestly be the call that I had with my now editor before she decided to purchase the book.
Yeah.
Because I'd had a few we had a few like nibbles, but not bites with this with some other editors who were considering it, a few people we were in conversation with. Um, but with my now editor, I knew that she was interested. And then through a series of events with like her team and her personal life, like being on vacation and stuff, we hadn't heard anything in a few weeks. And so I had sort of closed that door in my head and sort of tried to move on emotionally, a
Yeah.
little bit disappointed, but still. And then it was like a random Thursday morning when my agent asked if I had time to talk to my editor within the next few hours. And I, of course, cleared my calendar. And we just got on the phone and like giggle shrieked at each other in excitement for a good 30 minutes.
Oh,
It was
okay.
not the most like productive conversation. I don't think I
Yeah.
asked a single intelligent question. But like that experience of talking, across a camera,
Yeah.
but face to face with someone who could take my book like to that next level and so clearly understood what I wanted it to be and like what the heart of the story was and was just
Yeah.
as excited about Clark and Julian as I was really, really cool.
All right. That's wonderful. So was that second call, was that the call, the call that we talk about in the industry where you got
No,
offered
it
the deal?
was
Okay.
I think it was more of a like you're a debut author, we don't know too much about you. Are you sane? Can we have a conversation? More of like a vibe check.
Yeah.
And then it was left on a very like because she kept using phrases like, well, if we move forward and if
Oh,
we make
okay.
an offer. And then I tried to sleep that night and absolutely did not. And then the next day was
Yeah.
when I got the call from my
Okay.
agent, and spent the entire day just like fluttering around my house as we were in negotiating.
That's a lot of fun. I was one of my questions for you was going to be if you were comfortable to, because we have a lot of writers who watch the show
Mm.
as well as readers, and so if you would mind sharing your the call story and maybe even talk to us a little bit about how you found your agent,
Oh,
if that would be
sure.
okay. Yeah.
Sure. Well, two different things. But
Yeah.
the call, which I have talked a little bit about. Um, Another thing where I probably should have asked more intelligent questions than I did when terms were being thrown around about like what rights were, being sold where. And my book ended up going in a preempt, which was something that I did not know existed until beforehand. I was like, that sounds great. Yes, let's do it. Um, but as for getting my agent, probably a fairly standard story. I started by looking for agents of authors whose books I really loved and I felt like would, understand what I was trying to bring to the table. And so probably, shot for the moon. Didn't hook any of those initial like huge
Yeah.
agents. But kept querying. I think I queried upwards of 60 agents. And actually, my agent was not an agent at the time. She was an assistant to
Mm.
another agent, but she was pre-reading the work for the person that I had queried. And she'll tell you this story too. But like the book that I had initially queried with was the reason my now agent decided to become an agent.
Oh my
Because she
gosh.
she loved it so much and she could so clearly see where she thought it would like fit in the market and wanted to fight for it. Um, so she was my first agent. I mean, she still is my agent. I was her first client, and we really sort of like muddled through another
Oh, great.
conversation where we got on the phone and just like shrieked about how happy we were and how excited we were to be talking about to each other. And it took us several additional calls to get into the like nitty gritty of
Yeah.
how we were going to do this.
Oh, that's
But yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, it's nice to hear that you really connected on a more of a not an emotional level, but just where you felt very comfortable with both your agent and your editor. Sometimes it can feel like a different dynamic with
Mm,
agents and editors where you feel more like a subordinate to that, even though
hmm.
with your agent especially, it's more of a, partnership in a sense. So I'm really glad to hear that you found two people that you really clicked with in that way. So that's wonderful.
Absolutely. It was very clear to me from initial conversations with both of them that they just wanted to champion my book.
Yeah.
And that the feedback, like editorial style feedback that they were giving me in those early conversations, even though I am someone who, when I am given constructive feedback, I like want to shrivel into a husk of myself and die. It was so clearly coming from that place of they want the book to be the best
Good
that it can
place.
absolutely be.
Yeah.
And the feedback they were giving didn't compromise like my vision or the story or the characters at all. It
Good.
just helped solidify them and help like really sharpen things.
Yeah.
So even seeing, the additional work that I needed to do to partner with them totally made sense to me. And really was the path that I wanted to go down.
Good. 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 What is one thing that readers might be surprised to learn about you?
I always struggle with this one, but I come back to I'm a side quester. I love picking up a random hobby, a craft, a whatever, and just sometimes I do them for a month and I'm done. Sometimes they become lifelong things that I circle back to. But competitive jigsaw puzzling is
Ah,
something that I've gotten into recently. And you wouldn't guess it. Well, maybe you would, but there's like a lot of drama in these competitive jigsaw puzzling leagues, like
I didn't
between
even
the
know there was a
teams.
competitive
I
league.
didn't either until just a
That's
few months
great.
ago. I did one sort of one-off event at a library with my mom and sisters, and then I got brought in as like a ringer for a friend of mine who's in a league who like they needed four people on their team and they couldn't find a fourth who could keep up with them. And so she brought me in. And now there are t-shirts, and every month I'm driving across the state to go to this, and like it's us and this one other team who are like the best in the league, and we go back and forth every month on who's going to win. It's a whole thing.
Wow,
I
that's
love
great.
I love people's passions and like the things that make them slightly unhinged. And I think my side quests, I can always find someone or some new community who like wants to teach it and share it, and you get to explore the things that make people a little bit nuts. And I think that that's important.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've got to look this up now. It's just so fun. I tell you, I love jigsaw puzzles too, and man, those the ones that are shaped like typically it's like an animal or something like that,
Yeah.
and so all of the little pieces are curved. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, and they're all
They're
pretty much
cool.
the same color. Like if it's a lion or something like that,
Hmm.
or an elephant. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, those are so hard.
It's
Those.
true. It's true. There's one, it's my great white whale of puzzles, probably. I've tried to do this puzzle like four or five times. It's are you a musical person at all? Have you seen Wicked?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the shot, it's from the end of the Broadway first act where Elphaba is up in the air and it's just like her cape billowing behind her. And it's like her face and her hands and the broom are the only color, and everything else is just black. And I have
Gosh.
tried and
Oh my
tried, and I will
gosh.
complete this puzzle at some point in my life, but
Wow.
oh, oh,
Yeah. Oh, good luck.
thanks.
Send me a picture of it whenever you get it done. That's great. That's great. All righty. Well, this one's always this is hopefully is a fun question. This is your first book, although I think I saw that you've completed your second book. Is that correct?
I wrote a book before Formula Zero that did not
Okay.
sell. So like I wrote that one and then have this one coming out. And I'm actually doing final drafting today for the second book in the Formula Zero universe.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
What my question is what is your favorite thing to do when you finish a book? How do you celebrate or treat yourself, or do you?
Ooh, I don't think I have a like tradition yet. What Well, that's not true. When I'm in the home stretch, what I usually end up doing is my best friend, who has been on this journey with me from day one. She and I still communicate mostly over Snapchats, just like long video rambles about our days and everything that we're going through. And I'm usually finishing a book like in the last chapter or two and jamming through it in like one random week. I just got to get things done. And so I'll be sending her like snaps throughout the day. So I'm like, here is my word count. I have this left to do. Here is my word count. I have this left to do. And then when I'm finally done, I send her something of me like falling on the floor or something along those lines. So my friend Emily probably has those saved somewhere. But
That's
I
fun.
have done that with each of the three that I have to get me across that final hurdle. I use Emily to keep myself accountable.
That's amazing that you have somebody that you can check in with, and it's kind of an accountability buddy or something like that.
Hmm.
That's wonderful.
Hmm.
That's great. All right. Well, before we go, can you share what's coming up next, or is that kind of all mum's the board right now?
I think I'm allowed to talk about it. I am finishing edits on the second book in the Formula Zero universe, which is an interconnected standalone. So the next season, new set of characters, new teams, but we do of course have cameos from our favorites for book one. And I've started drafting something completely unrelated on the side because I apparently don't have enough projects to keep myself busy. But something totally else and fresh that I'm excited about too. So we'll see what happens with that one.
Ah, great. Are they going to call it like the Formula Zero series? Is that what they're going to go with, or do
I
you not?
think we're calling it like the title, which I don't think I'm allowed to say yet, but there's like title and then like a Formula Zero novel,
Gotcha. Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Cool. Cool. All right. Well, folks, be sure to order your copy of Formula Zero today. You can learn more about Meredith at meredithlanzen.com, where you'll find all of her social media links. Meredith, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, and
Of course, this was
congratulations
great.
on your launch. I hope, you're, I hope I'll be able to watch this amazing career of yours just kind of bloom and shoot to the sky. That'll be great.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited, and it was great to chat with you today.
That's it for today's high stakes story. Follow the show so the next episode lands right in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's chat, a quick rating or review helps new listeners find us. Visit tracydevlyn.com/podcast for show notes and links to today's amazing guest and their fabulous book. High Stakes is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone.